You are listening to the Firecracker Podcast with Tony Rico.
We're back in black, Sean. We're back. I'm back in really black. If anybody hasn't noticed my color change since the last podcast, but a few hours in the sun. But we are back with the season wrap-up podcast with Sean Brashear, Firecracker Vice President. And you're like the Grammy Award winner around here. You know, I've mentioned that to Lucas a couple of times, but coming off a hot summer. And so you're a hot topic right now. And I know you love that because you just love to be hot in any way that you can be. But my God, what a summer.
What
a campaign.
You know, it was a really good summer, a really good year. 16s, maybe not as much last week, some things, but at the same time, it was a great year. So
it's okay for you to have a little humble pie because, it seemed like you had an abundance of all the good stuff. But as we all know, the game humbles everybody here, but can't have it all the time, right? But really the point isn't for anybody listening. It's like, okay, here we go on the Brashear thing again because we've been putting it out there. But it really is because it's a testimony to what we believe in. And it's a testimony to the recipe. And it's a testimony to what is possible for everybody that's listening. So for any coach, any player family that's listening, that their experience could be more. It could be more fulfilling. You hear me talk about kind of the back end of the story. It's not the front end glamour stuff, but my gosh. So a great summer of, let's talk about your 18s real quick. We just did a little segment for our on-demand by talking about, for me, I mentioned that you took a good team and you made it great. And the way they played and what they accomplished. So how would you describe the experience with your 18s this summer?
Fulfilling. I think that, and we collectively made it great. I'm just a piece. And the kids that are bought in, the coaches that are part of it, they're all bought in. And so to me, it was fulfilling because it was a culmination of, hard work by everybody trying to be the best version of who we are. And I think we were able to do that this summer, and honestly, a little disappointed that we weren't completely fully staffed as we got to the finish line. But at the same time, to still be where we finished, win Colorado, take fifth at PGF, put it the two teams that we did get beat by played for the national championship. So, it was a really fulfilling year. And again, really proud of the buy-in, the kids, the players.
And it's not that they're not competitive because they are, but it's not. I'm going to guess it's not like you wrote on the board, we're going to win this tournament and we're going to come in top 5. But there was a competitive confidence to this team.
Yeah. We always have goals, goal oriented, but at the same time, it's always just about giving ourselves the best chance to be successful. So that's inning to inning, pitch to pitch. It's all cliche, but it's true. So at the end of the summer, you look back and you say, in those individual moments, how did we handle them? And I think the adversity side of it, we handled it very well. Even losing Donna, going into,
season-ending injury, right?
Injury. And, the semifinal and final game in Colorado, JC Bourgeois, unbelievable. And then she comes in,
autograph.
She goes to,
JC, I want your autograph.
She was our leading hitter at PGF.
Yeah.
2 home runs, a game-winning home run, led the team in RBIs, and to me, that's, I couldn't be more proud of her, more proud of the group. And that's what we had a lot of, Carly Brown stepping up, Danny is limited, Ashley got hurt. So a lot of pieces to the puzzle that the girls really knew their roles and they embraced their opportunities, which is.
Well, you said something earlier about we're just playing pitch to pitch, but I want to say to all the coaches out there when, my observations when things aren't going as well as they could be or things are starting to slip away, the ability to oversee and manage pitch to pitch. And that doesn't mean you're making a decision and putting on a sign every single pitch, but you are managing the flow of the game every single pitch. It sounds a little micromanaging of how to play this game, but if there's 3 pitches that go by and you're not sure what happens, you're missing detailed information that can really help you navigate your next move. And so that playing for the next pitch, again, cliche-ish because we hear it and it's out there, but I implore you to continue to educate yourselves with the importance because, again, this story that I present with what's happening with your culture is for the benefit of everybody in the organization. It's that you can have this your own way. And so that pitch to pitch is really, really important. The other thing is, again, we were shooting earlier segments today and talking about the buy-in of your culture, having a lot of kids in your dugout, but no one seemed to feel less important than the next person.
Well, we definitely, some years are different than others, and not always is that the design,
Right.
and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it in general, but at the same time, when you do have that, every player has to kind of understand the value of their opportunities and make sure they're maximizing them. And even,
how do you create value? How do you maintain the level of value and that feeling of value in a player that's not getting as much playing time, so that at the end of the year, when someone gets hurt and they step in and they do an amazing job, what's a key component of that to that part of that relationship?
I think it starts with self-belief, right? These having these players that have an understanding that they are good enough, and at some point in time, we're trying to create a team and an environment. If you look at it on a bigger scale of all elite level players who are all very deserving to play. And if we're in a situation where those players aren't in that position, then we're maybe not going to be the team we want to be anyway. So having players that understand that. So even a kid like, JC, she knows Donna's a great player, but she's never in a practice or in a game or in the season looking at things as, well, Donna caught 3 innings and I caught 2. She's not scorekeeping. Right. She's understanding like the design of this is to continue to help make her a better ball player by giving her a contemporary that is as a player of her similar stature.
But that's not natural.
Correct.
That's a learn. So again, to our coaches to understand, our responsibility is to help these players understand what they're naturally feeling, be able to put things, where they need to be, because, are you, when you have some players that maybe are around the 2 out of 5 playing time, and that's a general rule I would tell coaches, you have a team no matter what your number is. So side note, and if you're playing kids less than 2 out of 5, plan on losing somebody. Sure. So if you keep 2 out of 5 for your role type players, and use that number. But when you've got a player out there, maybe 2 out of 5, 1.5 out of 5, are you having more conversations with that player so that she sees how she fits into the big picture, her value because a lot of coaches, they don't realize they're facing the game. They're not really communicating with the back of the dugout.
Right. And going into it, especially when we get to championship play, I make sure I try to communicate to each of the players what their role may be for those weeks upcoming and kind of what to be prepared for. So you're trying to give them as much information as you can to keep them and have them understand. And even like, for example, we had 21 healthy players for the 18s for the week of PGF until Danny got hurt. Then we had 20. But in, I think, 5 of the 7 games, we used 17 or more of the 21 available. So whether it's you're a little faster than someone, right, you're a little bit better defensively than someone.
Sure.
You hit a high ball pitcher a little better than someone.
Right.
You hit the low ball pitcher a little better than someone. So you need to be prepared, because whenever those moments come around, I'm not just making decisions off a whim. I'm making them off of an educated, decision.
Right, sure.
So, and I think being able to utilize them, and they understand that, okay, I have this value, right? And then we put them in those positions and we put them in the best position to be successful. And all of a sudden they're making a play. And
they're already prepared to come in and lay down the bunt.
Correct.
They're prepared. They're not surprised by something. They're not in the wrong state of mind thinking about, more about what team they want to play on next year. And then they're not prepared for a moment, that it's that true preparation of what we want for our players. I think that's really, really important, because so many coaches, when you lose that player and their experience is different, it doesn't matter the number. So I want to clarify to coaches right now, when we talk about a higher number of players in your dugout, whatever it is, anything above 16, that's really ideally meant for championship time of the year.
Correct.
Because when we're in these championship tournaments, every base runner can be the difference in your season. So pinch running, every opportunity you have a chance to increase the speed on it, whereas before it might be, your courtesy runner and then, maybe 1 or 2 pinch runners. So that expanded roster gives you flexibility and a lot of like one play moves, 1 inning moves. Is it recommended for the whole year? It's really hard. Again, build a culture. You built a culture. People don't question it. They know they're involved. They know their role. They naturally they don't naturally destroy themselves, and they learn things. So it works. It becomes balanced. Beginning of the year, we recommend keep your rosters a little bit smaller. Give yourself a little room. Like right now, okay, we just finished our national championships, tryouts right away. Going into the next room, going into the next year. Smaller suggested rosters, give yourself a little breathing room, ensure a little more playing time.
Yeah, I would always, kind of, and I think for me, there's always self-evaluation. So even for me, it's like, okay, what could we do to be better this year? What can we do to be better? And with that is, I would recommend for most people to be in that, 14, 15 range, and then allow those last maybe few spots to kind of be, learned information by you, meaning, what is it that we're not doing as well in the fall that we need to improve on?
What do we need to add?
Where are we weak at, right? So
what's too low? Is there a number that you would say is too low for our? And remember, we got 10 and under teams, we got 14. So I think we understand the diversity of our
for 12 and under and 10 and under type teams would be like 12 kids is probably plenty because you want to maximize reps and opportunity. I think when you get to a championship level type second year 14 and up, that's when those numbers are going to tend to kind of go a little higher because they're more competition based. Players are a little more developed. And so now it's a matter of giving them an opportunity to compete with others like them. And that can happen a lot of times in practices. I tell people all the time, a lot of our best stuff happens in-house. Sure. It's not even in a game.
Sure.
Because we can replicate with our level of players things that sometimes we can't even do in a game because maybe the competition that we're facing in that situation might not be
base runners in a first and third, defense versus offense, stuff like that. So bunt defenses versus bunt offense, like different things. Sure.
So that's how we kind of manipulate the numbers because we have that in-house ability to play 16s versus 18s, or if we have two elite 14 and under teams, kind of control the narrative. The younger teams, I wouldn't recommend, that as much because you just want at bats, you want ground balls, you want innings pitched, you want to fail, succeed until you kind of master your craft.
Yeah. So I think two takeaways on that one. With the younger divisions, understand that you're developing experience. So repetition is really, really key. So to have a bigger roster and then have sporadic playing time for a 10 or 12-year-old, and we get it, competitive goals and different things like that, but it's imperative that they get the experience, that they're getting repetitions of failure, success, whatever it is, so that they are it's easier to shape them as they get older. I think that's super important as far as managing the number of players on your roster. So I think that's important. And like I say, going into championship play, you have all year to kind of manage your team and shape it. So listen to the story of your team and then really look at, I was going to ask you earlier, you said you sit down and you evaluate. So what does Sean Brashear want to do better this year? What's on the...
I think, one of that would be managing the roster. I think that, sometimes you allow, because I'm a relationship guy, you allow things to kind of shape themselves based upon the fact that you're maybe, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings almost. And, I have a saying, it's never personal, it's just business. But in some situations, maybe I've allowed, a roster to get bigger than I even needed to because I didn't have, I wasn't willing to say, hey, you know what?
Thinking with your heart.
Exactly. I was thinking with my heart, and I this year I got a little bit more heartless.
Well, but it's common. It's a common situation for a lot of coaches. So contrary to popular belief of parents that we just want to abuse the kids and we're out to hurt their self-esteem, but the reality is so many coaches care too much about their kids, and so they wear it on their sleeves. So in the end there's anguish and there's too much concern, and then that same coach with experience will find out there's plenty of times where you put in that effort maybe to, you disbanded your team because your daughter graduated going on to college. You wanted to coach another year. Now 2 months into it, you realize, man, I can't do this. My wife wants to spend more time with me. I want to go see my kid play in college. Now I've got these 8 kids that were part of my course since they were 12. What do? I want to take care of them. So now you kill yourself. You're making phone calls. You hand them each to a particular team. Now 4 of them go ahead and leave that team and they go somewhere else. And in the end, they still care about you. They love you. But just as you said earlier, it's business for them. Right. So my advice for coaches is that when you are trying to facilitate and helping players, either positioning them on the team, one player, a core players that you've got to reposition, we owe families a good, honest effort. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in, I'm going on my own, wash my hands of it, walk away, and leave families hanging. I think that'll come back and get you eventually in the karma wheel.
I try to offer any level of help that I can to advise people, get them in the right place. Yeah. I mean, the greatest thing about what we have is we have such a big network of things to be able to provide people.
And that effort is what I believe that we owe them. So to the families, we owe you that effort. Correct. To coaches, we owe those families that effort. But to coaches, you don't owe them maximum effort to deliver them all the way to the door because you're putting in too much time with that. And in the end, sometimes the best thing is to release them back in the river because all of these families no matter how uncomfortable it is, they're very good at finding tryouts, very good at positioning. Very few families are out just, well, we're not playing this year because we couldn't find a team.
Right.
When's the last time you heard that? So, that's just a word to our coaches, because we do think with our hearts a lot, and it's not to become heartless, but that's important in professions. Is you have to wear a certain hat that you're not all emotional and, overly protective, because it affects your decision making, which then in turn affects your operation. The other point that I wanted to make earlier that you had brought up, that so for coaches out there that they're getting increased interest in their operation. So regions, more teams asking, what's that number? What's too much? Again, a culture, what we found by these controlled experiments where we let things grow and kind of watch what happens, is that once you have the numbers and you have a certain amount of teams, like you said, you can have inter-competition, you can have internal events, you can 2-on-2s, 4-on-4s, you can do a lot of different things. We found that Firecracker versus Firecracker play is actually very productive. You have coaches that can converse with each other during the games. Hey, what are you guys working on? What are we working on? There's already a certain kind of camaraderie, because our groundwork says, look, we compete on the field. We don't often off the field. And I've really been impressed with that. And the other thing that when I say I'm proud that we have this, but this is really the glove as offering the options with uniforms, looking through our catalog and the amount of different types of colors of pants that we have, the amount of top variations that we have, options. Very rarely do you see two Firecracker teams out there in the same uniform. And right. If you think about it, nobody calls each other, and we have a lot of, cross competition. Mm-hmm. But it's not there. And so I'm really happy with that. So again, I want coaches to understand that, thinking outside of the box, don't be afraid to do it. If you don't do it naturally, you like to play it safe, you're practical minded, fine, but get somebody in there that will test the waters a little bit. Because isn't that exciting? Kind of what's happening with us in softball is this kind of what I call on the frontier, building things or out there doing things. I mean, how do you look at that and that vastness out there of nothing being built, but that's where we keep going.
Right. Well, that's how you learn. Right, is by trying and doing different things and trying to create. And I mean, we're not doing the same thing we did 5 years ago. We're doing different things now, and we'll probably be doing different things 5 years from now. But as long as we're looking to find ways to progress the game, progress opportunities for the kids, learn more as coaches, I think it's going to make the game better, give these girls better opportunities to be successful. And so for me, that's, every year is different, and we try to take the good and kind of weed out the bad and learn from our mistakes and grow from the positive results that we've had, whether they're event based or practice based or competition based, everything has a meaning to me.
Sure.
So,
and the story changes.
Yep.
But that's what keeps it interesting. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get boring. We talk a lot about the success that you've had with your cultures and your teams. And again, great season this year. So 1 year into vice presidency. And so I kind of pull you in and out of administrative type situations and kind of that experience that is important for us to gain. And so you and I have been able to experience and work with some realities of softball. Sometimes it's problem solving, sometimes it's problem management. One of the things that I would want people to know that, everyone has an idea of justice, and everyone has an idea of what they think should happen to correct a certain situation. And so if the people even cared out there, but imagine how many emails we get with, where's your play with honor now?
Right.
So-and-so just got kicked out of a game, and, and it's that obvious stuff. And and I'm not saying it's not there and it shouldn't be stated, but it's very, very obvious. And we get that. So the experience of softball, and when it starts to divide, so when a family starts to disconnect from a coach, or when a player starts to disconnect from a team, when the experience is, you're there, you're sitting there, you're on the weekends, but you're not happy. It's not something that, you started this conversation off with saying it's fulfilling. And to thine own self be true, people, it's not fulfilling to you. And so look at the ingredients of your experience and kind of how you're handling either something that you don't like, something you're disgruntled with, pointing the finger and blaming, even when there's truth in it. But what's the end game? Do you think you're going to get somebody? So whether it's a coach to a family or a family about a coach, do you think you're going to get a willingness on the other side of us all that we are working together to try to build this softball world up? And so I just ask people to really pay attention on how you're experiencing your displeasure. So I don't want the family that's writing me an email that their experience wasn't anything what they thought it was going to be, and they're extremely unhappy, and they want me to know about it. They want us to know about it. And they describe something that is important, and it's unfortunate. I want those families to know that we take that into account, and that we don't blow it off, and that even though there's not a sense of urgency, there's not this misconduct that's taken place that it's either in litigation or police involved or something. I mean, there's different levels of urgency, and your experience is important to us. But have the confidence that we work on accountability with our coaches and that we address everything. The fact that I'm not upset with a coach, or you're not upset with a coach, and something happened between that coach and a family, those to you families out there, don't think that we don't care because we're not angry about it. We have a lot of problems to solve. And to each individual, we know that situation is so personal and important to you. But imagine with the vastness of our organization and all of the well-intended coaches that we have that are on their free time, not certified, certain amount of investment, but usually how you play the game. And so there are going to be mistakes being made. What I want people to understand is if they see a repeated pattern of behavior, so if they see something that's taking place over and over and over and over and over, and even in some of those cases, don't assume we're not addressing it. Sometimes there's a bigger picture and a longer timeline for something to play out. But I want people to understand that you and I get to experience these types of problems, and we're empathetic. We don't want a family to not have a good experience. So don't think that we've discarded it. And because we didn't fire the coach, or we can't refund your $3,000 because you didn't play in Colorado, refunds are kind of like, it's like court. It's like if you were promised something and that wasn't given to you. And so be careful of playing time promises, different things like that. But I mean items, material goods, this was meant for that and we never got it. That's how courts make you whole. And we do that. The contracts are ultimately between our families and our teams, but we enforce those contracts. And we even advise families to take our coaches to civil court if this is the only way it's going to get resolved. And I want the people out there to realize that I don't think we've ever had anybody go to court. And usually when a coach who might be in the middle of that neener thing, I was like, well, they didn't do this and do that. But once it becomes transparent enough to where they copy us on that communication and say, look, we're willing to, it's not a threat. We just want this resolved. And when you take the right approach towards resolving a situation as opposed to venting, and that becomes your agenda to vent and let us know how bad somebody is, because we're always working to solve a problem. So you've got multiple teams now. You have to have even, some teams wondering they don't get to see you as much as other teams or
Sure.
this or that. And it's kind of natural stuff, but people don't let it ruin your experience. Don't let it imbalance. So what do you have to say about that? Because it's real.
I think as far as kind of those, understanding that, I think, there's speeding tickets and then there's actual, real, murder charges, I guess. Right. So
Lumping them all together
that, somebody going 60 and a 55 isn't someone that, loses his license and spends 10 years behind bars. So, and a lot of times most of this stuff they're speeding tickets, and then the other part of it is, being solution based and not argumentative based or gossip based. Because a lot of times I don't even know if people want a solution as much as they just want to gossip.
Right. And we have to pick up that real quick because we have to devote time to every situation.
Every situation. So I'm, I can't even, if I were to tell you the hours that I put in, and I know them on a day-to-day basis of email, text, and phone call.
Right.
It's from basically time I wake up to the time that I go to sleep.
Right.
And a lot of it is, dealing with some of that stuff. And again, I want it to be solution based. I want to be able to come to a conclusion, make sure that whatever, is it well intended? Is it just some misrepresentation? Is it just somebody who doesn't know how to best operate their team or their players? Or is there actual, malpractice, or I don't know if that's the right word, but is there actual or there's
malintent?
There you go.
Right,
there we go.
Right.
To do something dirty and unethical.
Right.
Right. Because there's, most of the time, again, there's speeding tickets.
Who's really malicious, Sean? Okay, there are a couple people in the softball jungle, as in all jungles, that are just could be termed as not good people.
Right.
And that's just the balance of life. But in reality, mismanaging, making mistakes, a common occurrence. Yeah. And now between, what they imply. So did they imply this? I don't like you. I want to harm you. I don't care how you feel. Or inference. How do we take it? And, the scariest thing, like in the high school world now, is that hey, we're going to protect our kids. She comes home and she's upset. I look at the boxes. She's losing sleep. She's loss of appetite. She's got high anxiety. And then that's because of what's going on at practice. That, again, we deal with these things. I look at that. That does not look good. Then I go back and I look at the hands that player's in. And it's a well-intended coach that is not the Pope or Mother Teresa and human. And like you said earlier, and this is here to help everyone, okay? We're here to help families. If you can differentiate the person that really is trying to harm your daughter and explain that to your daughter, those people that are trying to harm you, and then also explain to your daughter people that make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And it's important not to take them personally because, my gosh, you're a casualty waiting to happen if we're going to be damaged every time somebody makes a mistake that comes across our life road, because mistakes happen, especially in our softball world. And we're not saying, well, then let them get away with it. Like I said, and there's severe problems that we address. Sometimes we have to address them at the end of the year. We address everything. Otherwise, we're not here. We know that this is not going to work that way. But I think it's an important topic to bring up because swift justice. People want swift justice. I want you fired now. I want this. But if we fire all of the coaches that are making mistakes and first-time mistakes, our two options are now we fold the teams and the kids don't have teams to play on, or the next dad steps in because the last guy is making, and that's what happens. Right. That's that cycle. So we are working hard to educate. We are working really, really hard to build this from the ground up, knowing that mistakes are part of this and accountability is part of this, but to not make it either or, because people, you're going to see each other on the field. And when you have to walk a different direction because that's the organization you used to play for, then you have to walk another direction because that coach you used to play for, you have fallen into the trap. And the hypocrisies grow in softball that we prove over and over and over that, day to day, it becomes less about the kids. The kids are what bring us all together, but then the agendas are actual about, and it's even the pain of the kids, but then the actions between, coaches and parents and different things like that. So I want to spin it back when we were talking earlier about, I want to bring out a couple mentions in your operation. Who stepped up? You mentioned JC. So who are some players? Who are some coaches? People in your operation that, my gosh, there's no way we have this level of success in your operation without.
I think on the field, JC was huge just because of the situation that we were dealt with Donna becoming injured, and then Carly Brown had a tremendous summer for us in the circle. So those ones in particular, and as far as their role.
So JC, describe JC's kind of her as a team player, her personality. How would you describe?
JC's been with us for 4 years, and in all 4 years, JC has been probably as stable and productive as the players we've had. She's a type of a kid that I think the girls enjoy playing with and playing for her, and she's a pitcher's delight because she works hard. She's going to give you the maximum effort. So, again, cliche things, but she brings to the table a consistency that as a coach, you can trust. And for me, that's one of the things I always tell our players is, if I trust you, you have a better chance of playing, and you're going to earn my trust by, having things, hit the fan, and how are you handling them? And for me, that's why even when Donna got hurt, it's like, okay, at least we have JC who's gone through all these wars, again, 4 years of competition. She plays at a great high school. They won CIF a couple of times at Cathedral down in San Diego. So she's been in the fire. So I knew she wouldn't be overwhelmed by the moment. So for me, it was about her stability, her calmness, her ability to play with big lights on and not necessarily go, oh my gosh, it's my turn. And what the heck am I going to do? Yeah. And
that's what happens in war, right? One soldier's down, next soldier steps in and does the job, and
then dead in 2 seconds.
Did it. But JC did it beautifully, And so that mindset that she had, as we mentioned earlier, for her to be prepared was amazing to watch, and it was just wow. And Carly Brown, not your typical pitcher.
No, Carly has a uniqueness to her that's like, fun to coach and fun to be around and
especially when you know her.
Exactly. Getting to know her.
Right.
Sometimes maybe from afar, you're kind of wondering, okay, does she have any emotions?
Well, yeah. How many words does Carly say in a game on the field, would you say?
Two, like,
and we're an expressive, behavior based, put your persona out there. But Carly, especially for a pitcher, is beautifully quiet.
Yeah. And again, she, embracing those opportunities, knowing that, she was going to have a role, and then sometimes the role became a little bit more than maybe we even envisioned. And she, again, embraced it, took advantage of those opportunities, and was big in Colorado.
Beat big teams, won big games. Why was she reliable for you? What was she executing that
ability
allowed you to rely on her?
Ability to, hit spots, keep the ball down and keep the ball in the yard. Over the years, that would be one thing I'd say is the tendency to let that home run ball become more. So, and it was the off speed, stuff that really, elevated her against the elite competition.
So pitch to pitch management, more accurate, less mistakes.
Yep.
So knowing where the ball's going.
And I think her confidence in her team, with that is like the ability. Sometimes I think girls are feeling as if they have to get them out, as opposed to understanding that we're going to get them out.
Which interview was it? It might have been the one that she did, but where she just says, "I knew they had my back, and I had their back." That's the great thing when you hear that, because that's their dialogue from the story. It's not just something they're saying.
Yep.
I knew they had my back, and so great. And then that off speed. So and. We'll talk more about the on-demand platform, being able to get some of these teaching essentials out, but that third speed. And so for me, here's the story of Carly Brown. Comes in, dedicates herself, coming in on Wednesday nights. And, again, with my right brain crazy kind of methodology of teaching. And so I lay it down in front of her and I kind of give her the self-preservation. Do these things or die as a pitcher. No, not physical death, but you'll be inefficient. You'll be like a lot of other pitchers struggling, trying to throw hard and not knowing why they can't get anybody out. So she came in, throwing into those holes, making the adjustments, spot management, right? Hitting the spots, making the adjustment pitch to pitch. And then that off-speed pitch, which I'll just quickly tell coaches out there, it's basically taking your fastest pitch and taking 6 miles off of it. So I have a lot easier time taking 6 miles off of somebody's fastest pitch than trying to get them to throw 4 miles faster than their fastest pitch. So it becomes a deadly pitch when you're pitching behind in the count. So, and so
against elite level competition, you think you're going to live 3-1-2-0.
Listen to this, coaches, because again, those are aggressive, make it happen type counts. And so to be able to take something off, to be able to pitch backwards, to be able to force an aggressive batter to adjust to off speed pitches and then mix in her changeup. So now she's got 3 speeds. So Carly now steps in, Danny Martinez.
Danny was huge.
Again, another one comes in, kind of off and on with injuries, up and down.
She was great for us for 2 years, and has been great. She hurt herself in Colorado, still found her way to get through, through a great game, shut out Glory at PGF, and honestly was probably about at 80-85% of her health. But same thing, it's just the ability to locate and, throw different speeds of pitches, pitch backwards, go reverse.
Great command of her stuff.
Great command of her mind.
Now with Danny and her coming in to get some work. And again, the credit goes to coaches and players when they invest, because I just lay a little bit down for them. I said, look, if you eat this and you feed on it, I'll feed you more, because I'm not in a one-on-one teaching format anymore. And so Danny comes in and masters the routine. So if you think about Danny's routine in between pitches, and she's already pretty methodical, but the point is to make sure that you capture your thoughts. You kind of let everything kind of pass out that needs to get through you. It's one simple thought. So Danny probably takes the most deliberate breath in the back of the circle. Yeah. When she really, it's almost like sometimes you wonder if she's thinking this will be over soon, or I don't know what it is, but really manages her routine. And for me, again, we were talking earlier about managing pitch to pitch. It allows you to execute more often each pitch that you throw, because Danny's not throwing 65. She doesn't have 6 pitches, but with her and Carly or any pitchers that are really hitting their spots and manage themselves, Sean, you have the confidence you can beat anybody.
Yep.
Right.
And our team,
and whether you do or not, the point is to feel like we can do this. I'm here. I can neutralize you with this. And so, wow, yeah, they stepped up and did a really, really, really good job. Anyone else come to mind?
I don't even want to leave anybody out, but
Sure.
Alyssa Graham,
through 32 players.
Yeah, Alyssa Graham, specifically Colorado. I think if there would have been an MVP, quote unquote, she hit 8 home runs that week in Colorado.
She'd been in the Firecracker Hit Club.
She would have been, the Hit Club. And then, Cheese, her nickname, Megan. She made a play in PGF that I think everybody.
One of the most amazing plays I've ever seen. Yeah. And her dad wanted to make sure I mentioned this to her. So, Cheese, if you hear this, my gosh, ball hit into left center.
Yep.
Big game. Ball's going over the fence.
Yep.
And she seemed to play these net fences like she knows how to play them. It's almost like Ken Griffey on the wall or something, just knew it. So she's going back, ball's headed over. We're sitting right behind us. It's coming right to us. She catches the ball. And
balances herself off of.
And she falls back on the net fence and uses the netting to spring her back up, comes up and throws the ball on a fly to the runner tagging from second and third, throws her out, hoses her, perfect throw on a fly. So the catch itself was an amazing catch, coming up and making a throw and putting it on the mark and throwing out the runner. That is, that is now right behind Jill Ferguson throwing out. Who was it? And against the Oakland A's, 74 World Series when he took the ball from Jimmy Wynn in center field, came over from right field, stood in front of the center fielder, and threw a strike.
But I remember the play.
Man, oh man, we were Dodger fans right after that.
But yeah, no, it was honestly, I think if there was a play of PGF,
that was amazing.
That was the play of PGF.
Yeah. And she came up big, hit some home runs.
Oh yeah, she played real well for us all year. And she's a leader by example.
Underappreciated.
Yeah, she's somebody that if I was to talk about, getting into the program, she's been with us now. This will be her 5th year, and she didn't always play on the quote unquote this team,
right?
And she just
she made this team
correct
that team,
yep.
And that was huge.
And she's a leader.
Thanks,
she's a leader, no doubt. The girls feed off of her energy. And that's what you've told this to me before. Who would you buy a ticket to watch play?
Yeah.
And Cheese is one of those kids, you want to watch her play.
You can go out there and look for her, and she's not going to disappoint. And you can go out there and not know who she is, and you're going to know who she is by the end of that game.
Yes.
And so very, very, very impressive. So, yeah, we just want to make sure we made mention because it was a pretty special thing. And when you think about the level that your team was playing at and the teams that they were playing against and the types of plays that they were making because they weren't apprehensive. There's no inhibitions. They're just playing the game. So it made it really, really enjoyable to watch. So again, translate this to all coaches, empowerment, a lack of fear of failure, not overreacting. Sean uses the word fulfillment, communication, inclusive. I mean, these are all part of it. Not glamorous. Write them down. Ask yourself if you're implementing these things into your program, and it'll really make a difference. So,
and then real quick, Lon Barth and Tony Tornero, who do more than I do, day to day there. Because if I'm out with the 16s, or I go to a 14s, or if I'm doing whatever for the organization, or a tournament, or an event, or wherever my hands may be leading me, these guys are there week in, week out, giving everything they have to be able to help these girls succeed. And like I told you in an earlier thing we talked about is empowering them to feel comfortable that I allow, we're going to allow them to coach.
Yeah.
And, we have conversations. Sometimes we disagree to disagree, right? But at the same time, it's all healthy and it's all things that are for the benefit of our team.
Right. Well, and I think, like when you step away and Lon's calling pitches, people notice when someone's incapable. So calling the wrong pitch, and you just hear that, well, that was the wrong pitch. You don't hear that. If anything, you realize, man, this guy's just sliced up another team. So he's making the call. The pitchers are executing it together. That's quite a tandem right there. And that works. And so I pulled him aside after one of those games. Go, bro, you're one of the best pitch callers out here.
Yep.
Because it's underappreciated because he's not marketing himself and doesn't have lawn bar shirts or anything like that, or Firecrackers Barth.
Yeah. He's coming soon.
Hey, Lon, are you listening?
He's
do that. Sean can do it.
He's got his Newberry Park CIF champion shirt.
Sean's holding you back, Lon. Doggone it. You better pick this up. So anyways, that's awesome, Sean, because that's great. So again, I want everyone to hear this and think about, I sent we sent something out a few weeks ago about right brain, left brain. We're starting a new year. Think about your staffs. Think about the people that you compliment yourself with. Think about the relationships you're going to build with your parents, the honesty, the transparency, all of these things. New year starting. Super excited. We're going to head out to the Southeast. We're going to do something with the Florida. Batbusters and Firecrackers are mixing it up a little bit. We got some good stuff going. Risotto Canyon's booked up. You've got camps. We'll do more podcast
I love it.
So snap. We were just here last year, weren't we?
Yeah. And then now we're at tryouts, right? Like, and that's to me, probably my least favorite time. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, knowing that what it means is the start of a new year, right? And a new venture. And we get to see what happens, with the growth of the programs and the teams and the events. And so that makes me excited.
I was thinking it is kind of like the general manager in baseball and stuff when you have, the trade deadlines, July 31st, they're not sleeping much. Our meetings are starting at 8:30 in the morning. They're going till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. We have people to meet. We have to meet with families. We have to meet with coaches. We have to set the course. If we don't, we end up cleaning up a mess on the back end of it. So like all coaches, we're just doing the things that we need to do. But just again, really appreciate what the standard you're setting to reinforce the message and to show people that anybody can do this. Heck, if we can do this, Sean, who can't do it?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I wouldn't have thought this 10 years ago to be here and everything that's kind of happened through it. But I know, I would say this organizationally, no organization in my mind empowers their coaches the way that we're trying to. You know what I mean?
It's just one of the things that's important to us. Yeah. We all have to do what we want to do, and what makes us work and what feeds us is truly empowering people. But what people need to understand is then it comes back to you. You end up looking great, but really we're only here because of the people we have around us. So, listen, good luck with tryouts this weekend.
Yep, thank you.
And we're looking forward to another great year.
Yes, sir.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.